has so gladly invited those not within her fold to come and participate with us in framing a constitution that shall be the immortal charter of India's freedom.
The presence of women in framing the constitution enhances its inclusive nature. Kerala is proud to quote here the words of Dakshayani Velayathan, the only scheduled caste representative among the 15 female members of our Constituent Assembly.
Quote, what we want is the immediate removal of our social disabilities. Only an independent socialist Indian Republic can give freedom and equality of status to the Harijans. Unquote.
Only an independent socialist Indian Republic can give freedom and equality of status to the Harijans. Besides Dakshayani Velayathan, there were other 14 women in the Constituent Assembly. According to Hansa Mehta, women form 1/2 of the population of the country, and therefore men cannot go very far without the cooperation of women. The political and social awareness of the members of the Constituent Assembly, including those 15 female voices who tried to make independent India a place not only of equal status but also of equal opportunities. The Constitution ensured that the state shall not discriminate any Indian citizen on the basis of sex. We have come a long way, yet not far enough. Even though Articles 14, 15, 19 and 21 protect the rights of working women along with her freedom and dignity, we also have to legally fight for justice. Even now, women are struggling to work with dignity in the private and public sectors. We have to overcome many hurdles. Existing restrictions on clothing, travel, language, and unwritten social taboos limit the constitutional rights of women, and gender equality remains a myth even today. We should uphold our constitution, the scientific temperament, freedom, and secularism. Taking pride in each and all women who sacrifice their life for our country, the Legislative Assembly looks forward to the discussion on women's rights as envisaged in the Indian Constitution.
Thank you. Let us pay our respects to all those women who have shaped our Indian Constitution to what we are today. For the welcome address, may I invite Srimati U. Pratibha Madam, who is the Honorable Member of the Kerala Legislative Assembly, to the dais.
Good afternoon and namaste to one and all present here in this power-packed session on Constitution and women's rights. I am sure there wouldn't have been a session on Constitution and men's rights, isn't it? Just joking. It is indeed a great privilege for me to have the honor of welcoming some of the most prominent and powerful women leaders from across the country. Before I go and do the honors, let me take a minute to thank the one who made such opportunities possible for women in India. We have been talking about women empowerment and equal rights for women in all walks of life, but it is still not a myth for many women in the country. The Constitution of India have given lots of rights to the women, but unfortunately, majority of the Indian women are still not aware of their constitutional right. We have had a lot of powerful women leaders, so many powerful women leaders who inspired us to take up social work, politics, and so many other areas of work where women at one point of time was not even visible. In India, women are still marginalized. We are still being looked and referred as a weaker sex. When a woman achieves something, it is considered as a privilege and not her fundamental rights. Today we have 50% reservation for women in local and civic body seats, especially in Kerala. Look at the leaders on this forum. None of them have become what they are just because they are women. They have earned this position by working towards their goal by understanding their constitutional rights. I feel proud to be a part of this Kerala Assembly, which has seen the emergence of fiery revolutionists like K.R. Gauriamma, Sushila Gopalan, etc. These leaders have contributed immensely for the current state of affairs the women in Kerala do today. I am so proud to say that I have been able to join this revolution from an young age and contribute at various levels of works. In Kerala, I believe we have been able to enjoy the constitutional rights more compared to many other places in the country. We as women leaders can contribute a lot towards educating, encouraging, and entrusting women to take up the responsibilities as per the constitutional rights and not as a privilege. I'm sure you will have very interesting views from all these dignitaries. As such, one of them have contributed immensely in their areas of their work. With that, let me do the honors welcoming today's dignitaries. First of all, I welcome Dr. Nimabe Acharya, Honorable Speaker of Gujarat Legislative Assembly. A doctor by profession, she has excelled in the field of medicines before entering active politics. Before becoming member of Gujarat Assembly, she had served on Gujarat Family Planning Council. Ma'am, it's an absolute honor to have you here in this session, and I welcome you on behalf of this forum. Looking forward to listen to your views on this wonderful subject, ma'am. Welcome, ma'am. I don't think we need any introduction to Srimati Kanimozhi Karunanidhi. Though she was born in a powerful political family, before entering politics, she had excelled areas of journalism. As you know, she is a wonderful writer and poet. She had been the face of DMK in Delhi for over a decade now. She is currently serving as a member of parliament from Thuthukudi. Madam, it is wonderful to have you here today, and we all are looking forward to hear your journey as a women leader. Welcome, madam. Brinda Karat, our firebrand leader, is a household name not just in Kerala, but across the country. A parliamentarian, trade union leader, writer, revolutionist, Brinda Karat has many hats. She had been the face of common man for most of the agitation on common man issues. It's a privilege and honor to welcome Comrade Brinda Karat for this thought-provoking session. Welcome, Comrade Brinda. we have two insertion to this session. I'm sorry. I am proudly welcome these two persons. One is Ritu Khanduri Bhushan, first woman speaker of Uttarakhand Legislature Assembly. I welcome you, ma'am. Chandra Priyanka, who is a Minister for Transport in Puducherry. She is also participating in our session and proudly inviting and welcoming you, ma'am. Welcome, ma'am. In this session, our former MLA, our firebrand MLA, Srimati R. Leda Devi, ex-MLA Kerala. I welcome you, ma'am. And my colleague and current MLA, Srimati K.K. Rema, also attending this session. Welcome, Comrade K.K. Rema. Before I wind up, let me thank our Honorable Speaker, Shri M.P. Rajesh, for organizing such an event and inviting such prominent personalities. Not to mention his records of session that Kerala Assembly conducts and the amount of bills that were passed in record time. Once again, I welcome you all for this wonderful session. Thank you.
Thank you, madam, for that very comprehensive welcome address. May I now invite Srimati R. Lata Devi, ma'am, former MLA of Kerala Legislative Assembly, who is also the moderator of this session, to speak a few words.
Good afternoon, everybody. This National Conference of Women Legislators is a unique event in the history of our nation, and especially in the history of legislators and legislation in India as well as in Kerala. And the main theme under which all these discussions and deliberations are being conducted is power to democracy. I hope that these sessions and this conference as a whole will bring power to half of India's population, and thereby it will surely strengthen the democracy of India. And we are now going to discuss in this primary section, that is the first session, Constitution and women rights. That is the topic of discussion. And as we all know, the Indian Constitution provides a lot of safeguards for protecting women and its citizens. The Constitution says that the state shall not discriminate any citizen of India on the ground of sex. As per our Constitution, the state is empowered to make any special provision for women. Employment opportunities are not to be, it cannot be denied to women on the basis of their sex. Our Constitution prohibits traffic in human beings and forced labor. It offers just and humane work conditions and maternity benefits. And it unequivocally states that men and women have equal rights to adequate means of livelihood and it says that right to secure equal pay for, it stress on right to secure equal pay for equal work. And through constitutional amendments, through historic constitutional amendments, our constitution has reserved 1/3 representation in Panchayati Raj and Nagara Palikas of our nation. I am not detailing. Based on these constitutional safeguards, independent India made a lot of legislations, constitutional laws for protecting women and for giving her equal status in the society. Enactments like Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005, Immoral Traffic Prevention Act 1956, Indecent Representation of Women Dowry Prohibition Act, Maternity Benefit Act, etc., etc., were all there in India for protecting women. But unfortunately, these constitutional safeguards and these women-friendly enactments at times fail to come to the rescue of woman in times of need and when she is in danger. And the history of our nation is the history of the subjugation and sufferings of women. As per Thomas Reuters Foundation poll report, India is a place most dangerous for women to reside. Even women fetus is not safe in the womb of its mother. Women are neither safe in public places, nor in places of work, nor in domestic households, nor in their journey, whether it is in road, rail, water, or air. Notorious cases of rapes and sexual assaults are taking place in different parts of the nation. Atrocities against women committed by enforcement authorities are not rare. The women are facing indecency, insult to morality, persecution for dowry, dowry deaths, etc., etc., and naturally India occupies lowest position in 2020 in the Global Gender Gap Index. Hence, strict enforcement of the laws that is necessitated. After all, political participation of women is an indicator of the status of the women in society, but in this respect our nation is far, far behind, and it occupies 143rd position among the nations of the world. Total number of parliamentary opportunities in India at present is 4,896. Of this, only 418 is female women representatives. That means men are 11 times more than women in the matter of being representatives in legislative bodies. I am not detailing, but the necessity of the time is increasing the participation of women in the political bodies, the political empowerment of India, and the passage of the much awaited Women's Representation Bill in the Parliament, which is already there in the storage of Rajya Sabha since 2010. we have to limit the time in this session. These most distinguished guests will get only 10 minutes each. So I am concluding and congratulating all of you who are attending this augustous gathering today. Thank you all. Jai Hind.
Thank you, ma'am. Before inviting our first esteemed speaker, Dr. Nimabe Nacharya, Honorable Speaker of the Gujarat Legislative Assembly, may I request my technical team to kindly relay a very short film on the life and work of Shri Dr. Nimabe Nacharya.
Dr. Nimabe Acharya, member of Gujarat Legislative Assembly from Anjar, Dr. Nimabe Acharya is a BJP leader and has also served as member of the Gujarat Family Planning Council. Earlier in 2002 and 2007, she had won Legislative Assembly seat as a Congress candidate. She is a medical doctor and social worker.
Thank you, my technical team. It's a kind request to all the dignitaries to kindly maintain the time of 10 minutes so that we can smoothly run the session. With a huge round of applause, let us welcome Dr. Nimabe Acharya ji for addressing the gathering.
Good afternoon, everybody. It gives me immense pleasure to participate in this unique National Women Legislator Conference under the auspices of 75th anniversary of our great nation independence, Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. On this occasion, I compliment the Kerala Legislature and the government of Kerala for bringing together these highly talented women legislators of our country, even after suffering catastrophic effect of epidemic of COVID-19. At this stage, I take privilege. Where is Mr. M.B. Rajesh? He's gone already. I give my compliments and congratulations to Kerala Speaker, Mr. M.B. Rajesh, and government of Kerala to giving us this platform and the opportunity. And this is an historical event where all women are together and we are going to discuss the issues and problems and solution of women legislators. Speaking about the right available to women in the country, rights are classified in two categories, namely constitutional rights and legal rights. Based on the complement to gender equality, is reinforced by the fact that we have endorsed various international efforts and rectified various international conventions and human rights instruments towards securing equal rights for women since the adoption of United Nations Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination against Women in 1979. Some important legislation are the Equal Remuneration Act of 1976, the Hindu Marriage Act of 1955 as amendment in 1976, the Marriage Act, the Immoral Traffic Act of as amended in 1986, the Dowry Prohibition Act as amended in 1984, and the second amendment brought in 1986 makes the husband or in-laws punishable. Prohibition of Child Marriage Act 2006, the Medical Termination Act of 1971 is amended in 2002. The Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005, the protection of women against sexual harassment at workplace and various other amendable, which includes the Indian Divorce Act, the Hindu Succession Act, the Marriage Laws Amendment Acts, etc. So many rights, so many amendments as well, so many legal acts we have. But even after all these laws, introducing in survey conducted by the Nation Family Health Surveys 5, the said NFHS survey also highlights that among the women who have experienced physical and sexual violence and sought help, the most common source of support was the woman's own family. And in 77, the report also indicates that 77% of women surveyed never sought any help or told anybody about the violence inflicted on them. So we always keep silence, and that is why the women are suffering. Shortcut, because I have to speak only 10 minutes. In the other field, wherever involvement of women is concerned, under the nation mission of empowerment of women to achieve intersectorial convergences of all pro-women and women concrete programs across ministry in the government, we as legislator have important role in getting those programs implemented at the grassroots level itself. And this national mission is engaged in striving to achieve social, economic and legal empowerment of women by identifying the gaps in development goals and setting up the appropriate institutional framework to tide over bottlenecks in the process of ensuring coordinated and effective services delivery in women at grassroots level. In the political front, you all are aware that the 73rd and 74th Amendment to our Constitution are landmark enactment towards the ensuring the 33% of the total seats of members and of the chairperson are of women in all elected offices in local bodies. But the Constitution 110 and 112th Amendment Bills 2009 for enhancing the cantonment of reservation for women from the 33% to 50% of total seats in panchayat and municipalities respectively are pending in the Lok Sabha. Whenever some of the states have already increased the seats to 50%, so Gujarat and Kerala is a state where we have started giving 50% reservation in panchayat and municipalities. Constitution 108th Amendment Bill seeking reservation of 1/3 of the seat for women in the Lok Sabha and the state legislature has been passed by the Rajya Sabha, but it is still pending for consideration in the Lok Sabha. Wherever we go, they ask, what about the 50% reservation? Today, 160 women legislators had attended this conference. And I asked that 418 legislators are there in India. 9% women legislators are there in India. So everybody is asking us the question where we go, that when the 50% reservation for women comes. So this is the starting, and this is the historical event, I will say. And in this history, the name of M.B. Rajesh will be in the front, that he has given us this opportunity. So I wanted to give him standing ovation, but he is not there now. Where is he? Oh. So let us give a standing ovation to Mr. M.B. Rajesh. Give a standing ovation to M.B. Rajesh. Please, my request. Thank you so much, Mr. Rajesh. It is observed that many parties in our country have separate women right wing inside the party, or the presence of women in the party literacy as far from satisfactory. This makes it imperative for the political parties to encourage women in the decision-making process of the party. They need to be accommodated in the main party literacy. Hence, among other things, there should be a legislation to make it mandatory for political parties to provide for a representation of at least 30% of organization position at every level for women, and also distribute at least 30% of their party tickets amongst the women at the time of election. I request Mr. Rajesh that at the end of the conclusion of this meeting with convention, we should resolve that there should be given 30% reservation for women legislator. So this will be the outcome of this convention. Coming to the situation of women in my state, I will like to speak about the Gujarat. क्योंकि हमारे गुजरात के सपूत आदरणीय श्री नरेंद्र भाई मोदी जो हमारे सीएम रहे, 13 साल गुजरात के सीएम रहे, और उनके साथ 13 साल काम करने का एज ए एमएलए मुझे मौका मिला. It is my proud and my privilege to speak about him and speak about the Gujarat state, what they are doing for women. I will just enumerate few things. When Narendra Bhai has become the CM of Gujarat, first of all, what he said, उन्होंने बोला, सबसे पहला सेंटेंस उनका, सबसे पहला मैसेज उनका ये था कि जिस देश में 50% पॉपुलेशन महिलाओं का होता है, वो देश की प्रगति, वो देश का विकास, वो राज्य का विकास महिलाओं के डेवलपमेंट के बिना हो नहीं सकता है. So women development is the priority of Narendra Bhai Modi when he became the CM. And then not only that he speak out and given the message, पर उन्होंने गुजरात में सबसे पहले वुमेन एंड चाइल्ड डेवलपमेंट का मिनिस्ट्री अलग बनाया, और वो मिनिस्ट्री में उन्होंने आनंदीबेन पटेल को, जो आज यूपी के गवर्नर है, उनको मिनिस्टर बनाया वुमेन एंड चाइल्ड डेवलपमेंट का. और तब से लेके आज तक वुमेन डेवलपमेंट के लिए बहुत सारी पॉलिसीज़ बनी गुजरात में. वो सब पॉलिसी में मैं 5-6 चीज़ें बताऊंगी, क्योंकि सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट चीज़ मेरी दृष्टि से अगर कोई भी है तो सेफ्टी ऑफ द वुमन है. और वो पॉलिसी के लिए उन्होंने 33% वुमन रिजर्वेशन सबसे पहले पुलिस में दिया. तो आज गुजरात में आप देखोगे, जहाँ पे भी देखोगे महिलाएं आपको पुलिस के ड्रेस में सज्ज दिखेगी और ड्यूटी करते हुए, तो देन वी फील प्राउड कि वुमन आर सर्विसिंग एज ए पुलिस. सो उसके बाद नारी पुलिस स्टेशन, महिला पुलिस स्टेशन बनाया कि जहाँ पे हर एक डिस्ट्रिक्ट में महिला पुलिस स्टेशन बना, नारी अदालत बनी. और अभ्यम हेल्पलाइन 181 डायल करो आप, फटाफट पुलिस की वाहन, आप जहाँ पे भी तकलीफ में वहाँ वो आ जाएगी, और पुलिस और डॉक्टर सब लोग होंगे और उसको हेल्प करेंगे. तो 181 हेल्पलाइन वेरी इम्पोर्टेंट फॉर द सेफ्टी ऑफ द वुमन. इस तरह से मैं बताऊंगी आपको कि सोशल एंड इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट बोथ थिंग्स आर वेरी इम्पोर्टेंट. और उन्होंने जिस तरह से इकोनॉमिक अपलिफ्टमेंट के लिए वुमन के लिए जो पॉलिसीज़ बनाई, उसमें आज एमएसएमई में देखो तो महिलाएं भी है, और आप सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप जिस तरह से बना के डाउन ग्रास रूट में जो महिलाएं हैं उनको हेल्प करने के लिए उन्होंने जिस तरह से सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप के लिए जो पॉलिसीज़ बनाई और उनको जितनी फैसिलिटी दी है, आज हम देख रहे हैं गांव-गांव में हर जगह छोटे वहाँ से रूट से महिलाएं वो इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटीज़ करती है, गवर्नमेंट उसको फाइनेंस करती है, कोई गारंटर की ज़रूरत नहीं है, and they get finance. महिलाओं को कोई भी इकोनॉमिक कार्यक्रम करना है तो सबसे पहले ज़रूरत इनको फाइनेंस की पड़ती है, और फाइनेंस मिलेगा तो शी कैन डू द बेस्ट थिंग। तो उसके लिए जिस तरह से गवर्नमेंट ने पॉलिसी बनाई कि बिना गारंटर और बिना इंटरेस्ट सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप की महिलाओं को फाइनेंस किया जाता है, ये सबसे बड़ा अचीवमेंट मैं समझती हूँ महिलाओं के लिए है। क्योंकि एक घर में अगर इकोनॉमिक वुमेन के हाथ में है, वो कुछ अपनी आमदनी इकट्ठी कर सकती है तो उसका मान सम्मान बढ़ता है। चाहे वर्किंग वुमेन इज़ वेरी इम्पोर्टेंट, एंड ये जो पॉलिसी है उससे महिलाओं का मान सम्मान बढ़ा है, ऐसे में मानती हूँ। और मैं आपको एक बात और भी बताना चाहूँगी कि नरेंद्र भाई जिस तरह से गुजरात के फर्स्ट टाइम सीएम बने, बाद में उन्होंने आनंदीबेन को गुजरात का फर्स्ट वुमेन सीएम ऑफ गुजरात इज आनंदीबेन पटेल, एंड फर्स्ट वुमेन स्पीकर ऑफ गुजरात मुझे बनाया। तो ये मेरे लिए भी बहुत गौरव की बात है, और सिर्फ मेरे लिए नहीं पर हर एक महिलाओं के लिए एक गौरव की बात इसलिए है कि महिला को अपॉर्चुनिटी देना यही सबसे बड़ी बात है। और जिस तरह से हमको ये अपॉर्चुनिटी दिया गया है तो मैं अंत में यही बताऊंगी कि कमिंग टू द सिचुएशन ऑफ वुमेन इन माय स्टेट गुजरात, द स्टेट गवर्नमेंट promulgates the budgetary policies and implication addressing gender equality through gender responsible strategies, schemes and programs so as to ensure that the fruits of development reach to every individual based on the global agenda of sustainable development goal for empowering women in the society. Since 2014 to 15, the state government has become publishing gender budget pertaining to women specific financial allocation. The document provides insight into various initiatives by the state government. It also enables the development of to determine the need and justification for the gender specific allocation in various sectors. Gender budgeting process is now institutionalized with the state budgeting system, and for the sum, the gender budget statement 2022 to 23 has been prepared in line with the state budget 2022-23, in which we have around 1,009 major schemes under 100% provision towards women for their education, protection, healthcare, livelihood as the primary objectives. From this, the gender-oriented allocation with scheme of 100% and 33 to 99% for women can be recognized, and the government do hope that these documents would help in addressing gender gap, if any, and direct the prospective public expenditure on women and girls. Such a system would be useful in strengthening the state's effort, the holistic development and empowerment of women in the state. अंत में इतना ही बताऊंगी कि women empowerment is the main topic all over. We always say empowered women. यहाँ पे जो आप सब आए हैं, all are empowered women, and I will say that जो problems है, महिलाओं के जो issues है, उनका जो solution है, वो विषय में जिन्होंने PhD किया, मैं तो डॉक्टर हूँ, गायनेकोलॉजिस्ट, मेडिकल डॉक्टर, पर यहाँ बैठी हुई सभी महिलाएं ये PhD डॉक्टर है, क्योंकि सारा दिन महिलाओं के डेवलपमेंट के लिए सोचती है और उसके लिए काम करती है, और पूरा एक्सपीरियंस यहाँ बैठी हुई हर एक महिलाओं के है। तो मैं आप सबको बहुत बहुत बधाई देती हूँ, और इतना ही बोलूँगी कि जैसे यहाँ पे जेंडर इक्वालिटी की बात है, ब्रेकिंग द बायस इज टुडेज मेन टॉपिक। जो भी गैप है, जेंडर गैप, उसको पूरा करना है, और उसके लिए हम सबको मेहनत करनी है, ग्रास रूट लेवल से हमको मेहनत करनी है। और साथ में एक ही स्लोगन हमारी होनी चाहिए कि मैन एंड वुमन आर इक्वल पार्टनर ऑफ द लाइफ, दे आर कॉम्प्लीमेंट्री एंड दे आर सप्लीमेंट्री। आप सबको मेरी ओर से बहुत बहुत बधाई, कॉन्ग्रेचुलेशन, थैंक यू सो मच, ऑल द बेस्ट।
थैंक यू सो मच मैम, बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया आपका। Next, we would like to invite Srimati Ritu Khanduri ji, Honorable Speaker of the Uttarakhand Vidhan Sabha, for addressing the audience.
Thank you so much. कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन एंड वुमेन राइट्स के कार्यक्रम में मंच पर विराजमान मॉडरेटर श्रीमती आर लता देवी जी, हमारी बहुत ही सीनियर एंड वेरी ऑनरेबल श्रीमती बृंदा करात जी, डॉक्टर नीमाबे आचार्य जी, श्रीमती कणिमोड़ी करुणानिधि जी, श्रीमती के रेमा जी, श्रीमती चंद प्रियंका जी, and of course the Sutradhar, Mr. Rajesh. I am extremely grateful to be here and especially sharing the stage with Adarniya Brinda Karat. She has been an inspiration, right from your big bindi to your lovely saris to your soft spokenness to being the firebrand neta that we've seen in the Rajya Sabha and working for the women and for rights of the downtrodden. Ma'am, you are an inspiration and I'm really honored to be sharing the stage with you. I'm really honored. माँ गंगा की पवित्र धरा, चार धाम और भगवान शिव की नगरी, उत्तराखंड से पहली महिला विधानसभा अध्यक्ष मैं ऋतु खंडूरी भूषण, भगवान विष्णु की पवित्र नगरी केरल को प्रणाम करती हूँ और आप सबका अभिवादन करती हूँ. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Namaskaram to all of you. It is indeed an honor and privilege to be a part of this distinguished gathering of national women legislatures. A mere look at the presence of women lawmakers heartens my heart, gladdens my heart, and I can see that the country is moving towards the right direction. Of course, I would like to thank the Honorable Speaker Kerala, for inviting me for this conference, giving me the opportunity to speak on Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. I'm really grateful. Thank you very much. 1947 we got our independence and 1950 we got our constitution. So बड़ा आनंद आ रहा है कि हम अपने स्वतंत्रता दिवस का 75वां साल मना रहे हैं और साथ ही साथ एक ऐसा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन हमें मिला है which stands the test of time. So I'm really excited and happy. Ladies and gentlemen, I have been asked to speak on the topic power of democracy, constitution and women rights. Before I start, I would like to, Rig Veda क्या कहता है? Rig Veda कहता है aham ketu aham murdha. Now what does that mean? It says जिस राष्ट्र में, जैसे कि हर राष्ट्र में राष्ट्र के ध्वज को, फ्लैग को सम्मान मिलता है, आदर मिलता है, उसी तरह वेद के अनुसार राष्ट्र में महिला का भी वही सम्मान है. महाराज मनु कहते थे, नारी को बहुत ऊंचा उन्होंने दर्जा दिया था. यत्र नार्यस्तु पूज्यन्ते रमन्ते तत्र देवता. जिस परिवार में, जिस समाज में, जिस राष्ट्र में महिला का सम्मान होता है, वहाँ कार्य सफल होते हैं और उस स्थान पर देवता निवास करते हैं. ये मनु महाराज कहते थे. महात्मा गांधी, To call a woman a weaker sex is libel. It is man's injustice to women. If by strength is meant moral power, women is immeasurably man's superior. At the onset, before I start off and talk about the Constitution and the rights for women, I would like to mention the 15 dynamic women who were part of the Constituent Assembly who drafted the Constitution. They were women from different states, from different backgrounds, but they brought their vision of India to the table. They were dynamic leaders. They came from different backgrounds. They were freedom fighters, but at the same time, leaders with opinions who were unafraid to speak their mind and passionately advocated their beliefs. I would like to name each and give them the respect that they deserve. Amu Swaminathan, Kerala. Dakshayani Vilayudhan, Cochin, Begum Aizaz Rasool, UP, Durgabai Deshmukh, Rajamundry, Hansa Jeevaraj Mehta, Baroda, Gujarat, Kamla Chaudhary, Lucknow, Leela Ray, Assam, Malti Chaudhary, East Bengal, now Bangladesh, Purnima Banerjee, Uttar Pradesh, Rajkumari Amrit Kaur, Uttar Pradesh, Sarojini Naidu, Hyderabad, Renuka Ray, West Bengal, Vijay Lakshmi Pandit, UP, Annie Mascarene, Kerala, Suchita Kripalani, Haryana. I would like to pay my respects and homage to these dynamic ladies. Kudos to such women and salute to these torchbearers. India, yes, of course, they deserve a round of applause, so let's give them a good round of applause. India is one of the world's largest democracy and an ancient democracy. 2,500 years ago, we used to talk of, Lichvi and the Shakya republics. So as a country, we have nurtured democracy. The democratic spirit is an integral part of our civilization and our ethos. Our democracy has always been an inclusive democracy, and women have worked really hard to strengthen the democracy. They have nurtured the democracy. Yes, there are shortcomings, but I believe these shortcomings can be overcome only by more democratic rights, by more democracy. All our collective endeavor at the moment should be to ensure that we nurture our democracy, strengthen our democracy, and continue to deliver the expectations of the people in this country. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who headed the committee of drafting the Constitution, said, "I measure the progress of a community by the degree of progress which women has achieved." I would like to now, just read out certain things. Indian Constitution is our guiding light and protector and a catalyst for economic growth and social cultural reforms. It has the strength as well as the flexibility to grow, to safeguard the interest of citizens. What is it, that we are looking at? Gender equality. It reiterates, our Constitution reiterates gender equality, meaning denoting equality of women in decision making. It denotes economic and social freedom. It denotes equal access to education and employment. And finally, it denotes equal opportunities, rights, and obligations in all walks of life. Dr. Nimabe mentioned that there are constitutional rights and there are legal rights which are given to us by our state legislatives and our parliament. But first we'll talk about the constitutional rights. I'll just go through them because I would like to mention these. भारत के संविधान में आर्टिकल 14 में फंडामेंटल राइट टू इक्वालिटी का प्रावधान है। आर्टिकल 15 राज्यों को अधिकार देता है कि वो महिलाओं को के लिए उनकी सुरक्षा के लिए प्रोविजंस ला सकते हैं। आर्टिकल 16 टॉक्स ऑफ इक्वालिटी ऑफ अपॉर्चुनिटी इन पब्लिक एम्प्लॉयमेंट। आर्टिकल 19 भाषा और की अभिव्यक्ति की स्वतंत्रता देता है। आर्टिकल जो 21 है प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ लाइफ एंड पर्सनल लिबर्टी एंड राइट टू प्राइवेसी। आर्टिकल 23(1) ह्यूमन ट्रैफिकिंग एंड फोर्स लेबर को प्रतिबंधित किया गया है। आर्टिकल 39D इक्वल पे फॉर इक्वल वर्क। 39E में ये राज्य की स्टेट की जवाबदारी है कि हेल्थ, महिला की हेल्थ और स्ट्रेंथ उनकी जिम्मेवारी है, उसको अब्यूज ना किया जाए, उसको हेल्थ और स्ट्रेंथ दी जाए। आर्टिकल 42 में मटर्निटी रिलीव्स हैं। आर्टिकल 243D और T में पंचायत और लोकल बॉडीज के चुनाव में 1/3 1/3 पदों पर आरक्षण हमको मिलेगा। आर्टिकल 300A राइट टू प्रॉपर्टी। There are lots of legal rights also. Yes, before I go on to Uttarakhand, 2017 I would like to mention Maternity Benefit Amendment Act, जिसमें 12 साल का पहले 12 हफ्तों की छुट्टी मिलती थी। जब महिला गर्भवती होती थी उसको 26 हफ्ता किया गया है। बच्चे होने के बाद अब वो 26 हफ्ते की उसको छुट्टी दी गई, which is excellent. 2018 को जो क्रिमिनल अमेंडमेंट एक्ट है, जो कि आप सब जानते हैं, वो निर्भया केस के बाद बहुत कुछ हुआ था। इसमें बहुत लोगों ने इसके लिए लड़ाई भी लड़ी थी और बालिकाओं को जो बलात्कार की सजा है वो बड़ी है और कुछ केसेस में मृत्यु दंड भी कहा गया है। ट्रिपल तलाक, आई डोंट लाइक योर साड़ी। आज दाल में नमक ज़्यादा पड़ गया है, तलाक तलाक तलाक. I mean, what was this? So I'm happy that 2019 Muslim Women Protection of Rights of Marriage Act was उसको void or illegal कर दिया. I would now come to Uttarakhand. I don't know how much time I have, but I would like to speak about Uttarakhand. I am a shining example of what women can do. And if the system supports, you can become the first speaker of some state. As Dr. Madam just said, she is the first speaker of Gujarat, and I'm proud to tell you that from a small state, a young state, it is just 22 years old, a decision was taken to give the speaker, a woman speaker, to the state. I am just a second-term MLA, but yet the decision was taken because now we talk of women-led development. So that I'm a shining example of that. पंचायती राज में हम लोगों ने सुना, केरला ने भी अच्छा काम किया है. मैं 2008 में उत्तराखंड ने ये निर्णय किया था कि 50% रिजर्वेशन हम महिलाओं को देंगे. और आपको मुझे बताते हुए इतनी खुशी होती है कि अब जब हम गांव-गांव घूमते हैं, हमारे अगल बगल प्रधान महिला बैठी होती है. जिला पंचायत अध्यक्ष 13 है हमारे में से, उसमें से 11 महिला है. इसी तरह से मेयर, आई एम ऑल्सो वेरी प्राउड, मेयर भी है. आई एम रियली हैप्पी टू मेंशन दिस यंग गर्ल फ्रॉम हु इज द मेयर ऑफ Trivandrum. I don't know whether she's here or not, but it is such a pleasure. She's just 22 and she's mayor of Trivandrum with 100 wards under her. Fabulous. You know, it heartens it. You feel so happy. So similarly, when I go to villages in my constituency and you see these Mahila Pradhans standing up and, you know, speaking about their rights and talking about their rights, you feel, yes, there is something right that is happening. Of course, we have, I don't know about Kerala, but Uttarakhand में प्रधान पति का बड़ा concept है कि जो प्रधान बन जाता है तो उसकी जो पति होते हैं वो प्रधान का काम करते हैं. लेकिन 2017 में मैं जब जीत कर आई, उसके बाद हमने ये निर्णय लिया था कि मेरे कार्यक्रमों में पति लोग नहीं आएंगे. Not that I have anything against the patis, but the pradhan will come. And you know, I've seen the change. पहले वो डरती थी. मैंने कहा हम भी डरते हैं, हम भी कागज लेकर, हम आज भी कागज लेकर आए हैं, हमें भी डर लगता है. स्टेज पे बोलना आसान नहीं है. आप पढ़ना शुरू करिए, आपको कुछ नहीं कहना, आप कागज निकालिए और पढ़िए. And I have seen the difference, I have seen the changes. And when you give them positions like mayor, जिला पंचायत अध्यक्ष, अध्यक्ष बनाते हैं, presidents of the जिलाs, you make them, you see that they, you know, the confidence comes within them and they are able to come up and tell us the issues regarding women. In fact, when I became MLA from Kotdwar, this is a small शहर of Uttarakhand, women were very happy. They said, दीदी अब आपके पास हम कभी भी आ सकते हैं, किसी समय भी आ सकते हैं. आज तक कोटद्वार में कोई महिला विधायक नहीं बनी. So, you know, when women are being encouraged, it is, I see a change in the society, I see a change in the samaj. Similarly, Uttarakhand government has done another very good thing. पैतृक संपत्ति, मतलब आपके हस्बैंड की जो प्रॉपर्टी है वो तो है ही, आपको उसमें हिस्सा मिलता है, लेकिन जो अपने हस्बैंड को उसके पिताजी से मिलती है, मतलब पैतृक संपत्ति में भी अधिकार होगा, महिला का अधिकार होगा. पहले जो दादा के घर से जमीन मिलती थी या प्रॉपर्टी मिलती थी, उसका महिला को नहीं पूछा जाता था, बेच दिया जाता था. लेकिन अब जब उसका नाम उसमें आएगा, she will be eligible for loans, she can take loans. So this is another very interesting thing that was done in Uttarakhand. Of course, self-help groups are being encouraged by the Prime Minister himself, and in the last 5 years I can speak because I first became MLA in 2017, and I can tell you in the last 5 years I have seen women getting skilled, but now is the time to take the skill to the market. So it is extremely important that we now, whatever skill they have learned, they have to start earning. क्योंकि मैं कहती हूँ जब तक जेब में पैसा नहीं है, तब तक किस बात का विकास? विकास तभी होगा. We will only develop when we have some kind of money, because that also empowers you. Money empowers us. So we are also seeing in Uttarakhand that a lot of self-help groups are being encouraged to, somehow take the skills which are local skills and then take these skills to the market so that we can strengthen our women. We can, somehow make them more powerful. Of course, reservations of widowed women in Anganwadi. women who are widowed, women who are divorced, या women जिनको पति छोड़ दिया है, जिसको छोड़ दिया है, उनको पहला chance at आंगनवाड़ी worker मिलेगा. So that is also a very good way of looking after your women, strengthening your women. There is a very interesting project happening in Uttarakhand. It's a very small project, but I like to mention it all the time at all the places because it really heartens me. Noni Kuno. Noni in Gadwali means beti. Kuno, ka naam. Now where is this name going? It's just a name plate. And this name plate is put on her father's house. So there is this house which belongs to her father and iska name plate wahan lagate hain. I have seen the change in the child. You have, we are not going to give that house to the child. It is not going to come to her. It is just that we are somehow, putting a thought into her mind, a small seed into her mind that yes, you are important and you can do this someday. And when a young girl comes and tells me कि विधायक जी इसके आगे मैं डॉक्टर लगाऊंगी और तब आप देखिएगा, that really excites me because I feel what my government was out to do, to let her dream big, let her fly high. That is what we've been able to do with this very small program. Tillu Roteli Award, that is young women who are doing well in various fields, we award women. Mahalakshmi kit, that is from pregnancy on to till the child is born. So there are innumerable programs that are being done. Women in Uttarakhand were always strong. सशक्त महिला हमेशा से सशक्त थी, आज से नहीं. मैंने अपनी दादी को SDM को घेराव करते देखा है. I've seen her go to the SDM and fight for her rights. So we have, women who have been very powerful, very strong. Yes, there have been issues, there have been problems in the last some years, but slowly I feel things are improving. When the Prime Minister says that मेरी सरकार किसान की सरकार है, मेरी सरकार मजदूरों की सरकार है, लेकिन उससे बढ़कर मेरी सरकार उस महिला के लिए है जो अपने सम्मान के लिए पिछले कई सालों से लड़ रही है, तो मुझे बहुत खुशी होती है. I would like to end on a note with see, we are lawmakers, laws, rules, regulations, but at the end of it, we are mothers. We are people who can change the society. And I believe the teacher, guru, and the mother of the child can change the society. We need to change our society. We need to bring in some kind of values to our sons. बेटे को बोलो ना, बेटी घर देर क्यों आई? क्या हो गया? देर क्यों आई? So what? बेटे को क्यों नहीं बोला? I have a small story and then I will end. My husband is a very calm person. He never gets irritated or he never screams. But one day my young son, I think he must have been in class 7th or 8th and my daughter was in 10th or something, and he happened to push her. And my husband just lost it. He just lost it. I have never seen him. Since then, and since till then, I had never seen it. He just lost it. And for me also, for a minute when he was screaming at my son, I was a little taken aback. Then I asked him, I didn't say anything then, but then I asked him why. He says, आज बहन को धक्का दिया है, कल बाहर अपनी दोस्त को धक्का देगा, फिर समाज में धक्का देगा, फिर बीवी को धक्का देगा. This is a lesson for him that you cannot do this. So it is extremely important. Rules होंगे, regulations होंगे, rights होंगी, सब कुछ होगा. लेकिन समाज को अगर हम महिलाओं को बदलना है, हमारे ही कंधे पर है. हम बदल सकती हैं, हम कर सकती हैं. इसलिए बहुत आवश्यक है कि समाज को आवश्यकता है, अच्छे लड़के समाज में भेजने की आवश्यकता है, और शायद इसमें हम सब माँओं का बहुत बड़ा हाथ रहेगा. एक बार फिर मैं पूरे मंच को धन्यवाद देती हूँ और आप सबको शुभकामनाएं और बधाई देती हूँ. बहुत बहुत आभार, धन्यवाद.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for that very candid and honest sharing of your topic, Constitution and women's rights.
Thank you very much. Respected fellow panelists, and it's really an honor and privilege that we have two speakers of the Gujarat and Uttarakhand Assembly here. We have Kanimuri, the fighter from the Lok Sabha. We were for a term in the Rajya Sabha together. We have other respected members here. and my very, very dear sisters and brothers. It's really wonderful to be here in this legislators, lawmakers conference. And I would especially like to thank the Kerala Legislative Assembly and Shri M.B. Rajesh for this wonderful initiative that you have taken. And I do hope that other states also, seeing this initiative that you have taken, and including the central government and parliament, will also take an initiative to give a platform to women, lawmakers, and also at different levels of governance, all those strong and inspiring women at the panchayat and local body level. We would like to also hear their voices on this occasion of 75 years of India's independence. When we talk about the Constitution and women's rights, it's a very vast subject, and the speakers before me have made some very important points, so I'm not going to repeat them or the articles in the Constitution. But yes, I think we do begin with paying tribute to the 15 women in the Constituent Assembly who have been, their names have been read out by Madam Kanduri. That was a very good gesture that you made. I also have their names here, and I'm not going to repeat them, but thank you for that. They were only 5% of that Constituent Assembly, bas 5%. And many of the committees which were formed of the Constituent Assemblies did not have a single woman. In fact, the drafting committee, of which Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar was the chair, the most important committee, did not have a woman. But yet in the discussions, they made their voices heard. But if you look through and you read through the debates and discussions of the Constituent Assembly, while there was space for women, and while we note that there were many progressive men in that Constituent Assembly who spoke out for women's issues and who spoke against the discrimination against women. And I think this reflects a reality that we have in India, that unlike many of the Western democracies, here in India, where women have taken the lead against patriarchal practices and notions, we have had through the ages inspiring social reformers, lawmakers, who have done pioneering work in the field of women's rights. So in India, unlike many other democracies, the fight against patriarchy has also been linked to socio-economic issues. It's a wider framework. It's not just men versus women or women versus men. And I think it is important to note that the Constituent Assembly reflected that. And that assembly also reflected another reality. How is it that 5% women and a certain section of our men in the Constituent Assembly could carve for us a document, the Constitution, which in substantive measure we can be proud of today as far as equality is concerned? How is it? According to my reading of history, and we can all have different views on this, it's primarily because of the values of the freedom movement itself. It was the issues of the freedom movement which was always a pressure on the Constituent Assembly. And don't forget, the Constituent Assembly comprised of members who were property classes. The poor were not there in the assembly. They weren't allowed the right to vote at that time under the Government of India 1935 Act. So they were propertied, educated people. But if our constitution reflects this secular, democratic, republican character, I think primarily it is because of the people of India, the aspirations of the men and specifically women in the freedom struggle, which we see reflected in the Constitution. And therefore, I would like to pay my tribute to all those unsung heroines. We know many of the names. The workers, the peasants, the women among workers and peasants who fought for India's freedom without any thought of their own lives, their own children, their own families, their own futures. They fought for India. And they fought for India with a unity which made sure that India was freed from colonial regime. So I think this is the context in which we look at the Constitution. We cannot look at the Constitution without the context of the people of India. And when we look at women's rights as part of this Constitution, and my friends and respected and very well-read fellow panelists will no doubt read out all the articles, etc., etc. But I would like to just take three aspects in which I believe women's rights are embedded. The first is the basic character of the Constitution, which starts with the preamble, "We the people of India." And what does it mean? Of course it means democracy, we the people. But I think more than that, it means that our Constitution is not linked to any religious text or injunction. Madam Speaker from Uttarakhand had given very interesting quotations from different texts. I'm sure in all religious texts, you will find both pro-woman and extremely grossly anti-women statements or cultures or injunctions. But our Constitution is not colored by any specific religion. So our power, yes, our Constitution gives a personal right for belief. And every religion has its place in our Constitution. It is seen as a personal right. You could be a believer or non-believer, but in India, you're an equal citizen. There is no grading of citizenship based on religion, in which there are in many parts of the world today. Theocratic societies who use religion as their framework to decide social relations and social rights. And we have seen how such theocracies bulldoze in many ways women's rights. So I think one of the most important frameworks of the Indian Constitution is precisely this, that while each citizen has the right to believe or not believe in the religion of her choice, the Constitution itself does not have a color of any religion. So we are not at all guided by texts. And I believe this basic character of the Constitution, I'm not talking about the word secular which was added in 1976. I'm talking about what the Supreme Court has said. The basic structure of the Constitution of India includes secularism. And therefore today, when we talk about women's rights, it is important for us not to take it for granted. Please do not take it for granted. Because if there are right-wing consolidations in any particular direction, in the name of any religion, please remember it is women and women's rights which are going to suffer. And therefore, any assault on the basic structure of the Constitution and women's rights flowing from it is something that all of us as women lawmakers, wherever we are, in whichever party, as women in defense of women's rights, my dear friends, it is our duty to stand up and say, no, this is not going to happen. It is not going to happen to India. We are not going to mimic theocratic societies. We are a free, secular society, and we aim to remain so. So that is the first point where I believe that women's rights are embedded. The second, of course, is the Republican democratic character of the Constitution. And both our earlier speakers have mentioned how important democracy is and given lovely examples also. I look at it, if you look at it from the women's point of view, I sometimes wonder why at that time there was no very specific mention of the issue of violence against women and the issue of a constitutional right to live in a safe environment. Perhaps in those days, after the freedom struggle, although of course there were so many struggles of women against violence in different ways, it's not specifically reflected in the Constitution of India, but now we see through various court interpretations that Article 21, which is the right to life and liberty, is a very, very critical aspect of the fundamental rights of the Constitution because it defends the right to life and liberty and dignity. And I think that is what the women of India had fought for. So to that extent, even though there's no specific mention, the issue of democracy and the issue of the right to vote, the issue of adult franchise, all these issues in the Fundamental Rights chapter, I think, are very critical. And therefore today, when civil liberties are under attack in any way, from wherever, from whichever government, when democracy is under attack, when violence becomes a weapon, then again, we have to see how women are affected. Because as we all know, my dear sisters, women's bodies are seen as sites to play out all kinds of politics. The politics of communalism, the politics of casteism. You want to teach somebody a lesson. Who is the symbol which is first attacked? It is women. And therefore, attacks on democracies and attacks on civil liberties, in whichever form they come, that is something, I believe, which deeply affects us as women. And this aspect of the Constitution, the aspect of democracy and democratic rights, is critical for women and their movements for change. And the third aspect of the Constitution is the entire approach against the toxic caste system. Caste, which is an abomination in any civilized country. And we, and 5,000 years and more of our civilization, and yet today you cannot ignore the reality that caste plays the most horrendous role in the pursuit of power at the village level, at the local level, and it is Dalit women who are the worst affected. Dalit women at the bottom of a social hierarchy which has been prohibited by the Constitution of India. But we know the many, many ways that it still exists. In about 20 years ago in Tamil Nadu, cradle of social reform, an organization of Dalits did a survey as to what are the ways that untouchability is practiced. And they identified 103 different ways that untouchability and discrimination is practiced. And this is in the cradle of a social reform movement. Kanimuri will know about it because she too has fought so many cases against Dalit atrocities. And for women, although Dalit women obviously are the most affected, but I believe that the constitutional ban, prohibition on caste and casteist practice is essential for women of all castes because it imprisons us. It imprisons women. And overrides the autonomy of women to make their own choices. So if you look at the Constitution and women's rights, along with the various articles, and if you look at it in these three aspects, you can see how important it is to preserve these rights in the Constitution. However, I believe strongly that there was a terrible compromise made in the Constituent Assembly in which a big section of rights, quoted again by Madam Speaker of Uttarakhand, are put in the directive principles of the Constitution which are not enforceable in a court of law. And those very, very important provisions are against inequality. They talk about the right to livelihood as a fundamental right. That means a right to work is a fundamental right. These are rights which are germane and intrinsic to the development of any society, and especially women in that society. But in our Constitution, the right to work is not a fundamental right. The right to equal wage, there's a law for it. But those provisions of health, right to health is a fundamental right, those are all kept in the directive principles of the Constitution. And we all know what is happening to the directive principles of the Constitution. So I think in these 75 years, the struggle to make many of the provisions of the directive principles into enforceable rights as constitutional rights, I think that is an agenda that all of us and all of you as lawmakers should keep in your minds for any opportunity you get on the floor of Parliament, on the floor of assemblies to raise these issues. One more aspect. Unanimously, all the 15 members of the Constituent Assembly said, "Bhai, hame reservation nahi chahiye." They said, "We don't want reservation. It's a special privilege we don't want." Now, there are many reasons for that. I'm not going into it now. But I believe, perhaps they believed that, India is going to be just and fair to them, and India's politics is going to be just and fair to them. But today, we all know that even the miserable global average of 25%, we are well below that. Madam said 9%, absolutely correct. In fact, it's 8.8%. And in Parliament, we're still just 14%. Of course, there are political parties who have taken the step of giving many more tickets to women. That's a very positive thing. And all of us who are in politics fight for that. However, it's very clear that unless we have the law for 33% reservation of seats, we are going to take another 75 years to get to even 33%. So I entirely support the suggestion made by the first speaker, the Honorable Speaker of Gujarat, that we should have a resolution from this conference, from all the lawmakers across political parties saying, yes, we want 33% in the 75th year of India's independence. And finally, as lawmakers, because each of you has a journey, I know. We belong to different parties, we fight each other politically. That's fine. We have differences, that's also fine. We don't have to say we don't have differences. We do have political differences, fine. But are there any areas in which, just like 33%, we can all work together with a common aim? I believe we should look for that. Now, right here in this conference, you have the Congress, you have the BJP, you have the TMC, you have the RJD, you have the DMK, you have the AAP party, you have many of the Kerala parties here, the Money Congress and others, and you have the CPI, you have the CPM. We all belong to different parties. But isn't it a fact that sexism in politics, sexist comments, they don't want to fight politically, but they will point to you and say, "Are ye aurat ka to ye." What happened yesterday? I don't know if Supriya's here, she was a speaker, but she's not here. She raised a question, a political question. Now, I may totally disagree with that question. But if she is told by a respected leader of a political party in that state that she doesn't know politics, let her go home and cook. What is it? I mean, what is it? First of all, if that gentleman himself could cook, he wouldn't have insulted cooks of India in that way. But forget that. Forget that. Why insult in an entirely sexist, male supremacist way? And I know that there are women politicians who are heading parties who have had to face many such insults. Now, if as women, whichever party we're in, we fight politically, but let us at least ensure in parliament and assemblies a code of conduct which has a ban and prohibition of sexist comments against women in public life. Let us come together. Whichever party, if my party leader speaks about a woman leader in a way which is degrading, he may be thinking that he is degrading a particular woman leader, but in fact, all of us get degraded, democracy gets degraded, public discourse gets completely smashed, and where's the space? So, the point is, along with women's reservations, there are many other issues like this on which there may be common experiences and common ground, and certainly one of them is the kind of sexism which is becoming rampant in Indian politics. And I think it's time that we women, lawmakers in women's struggles, draw the line. This is the Lakshman Rekha, and if you cross it, you are going to be in trouble. I think that is something also we can consider from this conference, if you all think that it is worth following, and if you think not, well, at least in your own assemblies, in your own parties, and in parliament, maybe, I'm sure Kanimuri agrees with me, and she can represent all of us and make such a resolution in the Lok Sabha. So I thank you very, very much for giving me this opportunity to speak to you. And once again, MB Rajesh ji, thank you very much. More strength to you. Inqilab Zindabad.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am, for that firebrand speech. I think we are fortunate to have all firebrand speakers for this session. Everybody is like outweighing the other. The next one is another firebrand speaker that we have amongst us, Srimati Kanimuri Karunanidhi ji. We may, with a huge round of applause, welcome the Member of Parliament from Lok Sabha, Srimati Kanimuri Karunanidhi ji. for her address.
Vanakkam. Namaskaram. എന്നെ ഇവിടെ ക്ഷണിച്ചതിന് നന്ദി. സ്വാതന്ത്ര്യത്തിൻ്റെ അമൃതമായ ഈ ഉത്സവത്തിൽ പങ്കെടുക്കുന്നതിൽ എനിക്ക് വളരെ അധികം സന്തോഷമുണ്ട്. I'm very happy to be here in Kerala to be part of this conference, especially in Kerala, because this land has always celebrated and respected women. When I say celebrated, it is not celebrating motherhood, it is not celebrating the beauty of being a woman, but it is always celebrated the empowerment of women, and I'm happy to be here. And I'd like to thank our speaker, the Kerala Assembly Speaker, and my former colleague, MB Rajesh. And I also like to show my respects to Dr. Nimabe Nacharya and our inspiration always, respected Brinda Karath, Madam Lata Devi, Rema, Chandra Priyanka, Ritu Kanduri, Bhushan, and all the sisters and brothers here who have come here to this conference. I'm happy once again to be here, celebrating our freedom struggle. And I'd also love to recall women freedom fighters from Kerala like Akkama Cherian, and one of the first people to get into the Constituent Assembly in Kerala also. Because sometimes we fail to be inclusive when we recall the names of freedom fighters. We think some parts of the country played a lesser part in the freedom struggle, which is far from the truth. Because men and women from all around this country, and women especially, have played a very important part to making India what it was and to get us our freedom, which we celebrate today. When we talk about Constitution and women's rights, all the speakers here mentioned that there were 15 women who played a very important part in forming our Constitution. But I also would like to remind you, out of 389 members, only 15 of us were women. And sadly, it continues till today. Because in many of the lawmaking institutions across the country, put together, women's participation is less than 9%. And when we talk about lawmaking bodies like the Parliament, the Lok Sabha, the Rajya Sabha, and the state assemblies, in state assemblies it is only 9 to 10%. And as Madam Brinda Karath, when she spoke, she mentioned it is around 15.3% in Lok Sabha and 12% in the Rajya Sabha. We make laws for men and women of this country. Laws which change the lives, which create borders, boundaries, which tell our men and women how to behave, what is acceptable in this country, what will not be acceptable in this country. But there are men sitting there thinking for us, making our decisions for us. How fair is it? Our lives are decided by majority men without women's voices being heard there. So this is why we need 33% women's reservation to start with, and hopefully we will reach, like we've reached in Panchayat Raj, 50%. Or if possible, in Tamil Nadu, I think we've crossed the 50% in Panchayat elections, and so if possible, we could cross that. But I think we need equal women's participation in lawmaking bodies, in politics, to make decisions about the lives of women in this country. I'd like to read out a quote from Audrey Lorde, a black women writer from America, a feminist and a civil rights activist. My silences had not protected me. Your silence will not protect you. What are the words you do not yet have? What do you need to say? What are the tyrannies you swallow day by day and attempt to make your own until you will be sickened and die of them, still in silence? This is the problem of silence, and yet women of this country believe that silence is their weapon, silence is the way to live, and silence will take them somewhere, because patience and accepting what comes as it is supposed to be part of the greatness of womanhood. We should understand that silence and accepting what is given to us as it is not going to take us anywhere. We have to break the hurdles. We have to break the glass ceiling. Tande Periyar, one of the greatest thinkers of modern India and one great feminist, he said, whatever is in your way, whatever becomes a hurdle to achieve your dreams, throw it away, break it. Nothing should come. It can be anything. It can be religion, it can be family, it can be beliefs, it can be tradition, it can be culture. But don't feel fear, don't be afraid to throw anything which becomes a hurdle to you. I think women of this country have to stand together, like Brindaji and other speakers here mentioned, that we have to come together beyond parties, beyond beliefs, beyond religion, beyond state, beyond language, beyond caste. Together as women, as oppressed people of this country, we have to come together, bring our voices together and say that we are here to stay and we will claim our rights. Because the Constitution promises us many things. The preamble of the Constitution of India assures justice, social, economic, political, and equality of status, opportunity, and dignity to the individual, including women and men. But in reality, is there justice? Is there equal opportunities? Is there equal economic progress? And enough space for all of us, men and women in this country? We are discriminated on the basis of gender. We are discriminated on the basis of religion, on the basis of caste. We haven't been able to do away with caste system, with religious biases, racism, and gender bias. We are celebrating 75 years of independence, of our freedom, but the freedom has not come to everybody. It is very important. The Constitution is there to protect us. The Constitution promises us many things, but unless there is a political will and unless there is a social change, whatever has been promised to us can never be achieved, is what I'd like to say. Today, women do enjoy a lot of powers from compared to our mothers and grandmothers. But these rights have not come easily. I'd like to quote the case of Muttama versus the Union of India. This woman, Muttama, she wanted to join the Indian Civil Services. She writes her exams and she goes for her first interview. Say the chairperson of that talks to her and very kindly, very nicely says, you've applied for Indian Foreign Services, you're a woman. I mean, you should not be going there. So I have done you a favor. So I have told the person who is going to do your next level of interviews for Indian Foreign Services to give you the minimum marks as less as possible so that you will not qualify to become part of the Indian Foreign Services. I'm doing you a great favor because you are a woman. But then his recommendations thankfully did not work and she came as the topper of the list. And she joined the Indian Foreign Services. But then, before she joined the service, they said she had to give it in writing that she will not get married without their permission. And she was denied promotions for 30 years because she was a woman and she got married. Finally, she had no choice but to go to the court. In 1979, she goes to court and fights against the Union of India, and then she wins. And we know about the case against the Indian Airlines, Air India, where air hostesses had to resign if they got married or if they became 35 years of age. So that was another case. These women had to go to court and fight. So it has not been an easy space which we have created today. There was a Devadasi system in this country. Young children were given as offerings to temples. And later it became children. When I talk about children, I only mean girls. The girl child was given as an offering to temples, and then it became a caste system by itself. And these women were married off to the god. And then it did not, unfortunately, stop with the god. But then they said we need it because we have to hold up the culture, the tradition of this country. So, Dr. Muthulakshmi Reddy, the first woman representative to be elected to the Constituent Assembly, she brings a bill in the Tamil Nadu Assembly in 1920, saying that this Devadasi system should be abolished. A person in the opposition who spoke against her got up and said, this is a service to God. So how can you say this system has to be abolished? Immediately, Dr. Muthulakshmi Reddy got up and said, our women have served God for a very, very long time. Now it is the time for your women to serve God. Of course, the Devadasi system abolishing act was passed. And today, still, there are women sex workers in society who do not have any rights, whose children have no future because they are not recognized. They cannot turn anywhere for their rights. The society does not, the government does not give them any recognition or space or rights, and they are abused. They're treated violently, but they have nowhere to turn to. And when we talk about women's rights, this country is very particular about preserving tradition when it comes to women's rights and women's protection over women. In the parliament, I've raised questions many times about marital rape, rape within a marriage. I was quite surprised and shocked by the reply I got. They said, this is something which we have to think about because this goes against the culture and the tradition of this country. This is the reply I got in Parliament for a question of mine about marital rape. And of course, following that, there have been many cases, and today we've got a judgment. They said they're waiting for the Parliament to pass a bill, but nothing happened. Then finally we got the judgment where they said that women has no right to raise her voice after she is married. And more than that, in a marriage, a woman, we say that marriage age for women is 18. And now they're talking about raising it to 21. But in our constitution, a woman who is only below the age of 15 can be raped by her husband. If you're above that, it's not considered rape. So there are so many questions about right, about the protection, about the violence against women, which are unanswered. When coming to the 33% women's reservation, this is one bill supported by all political parties across the board. Maybe there's an exception of one or two who have certain objections to it. All political parties have it in their election manifesto that we will bring 33% women's reservation. But that is the only bill which we have not been able to pass, and I don't understand why. We passed so many bills which the opposition does not accept, the political parties do not agree with. But women's reservation is one bill which we have not been able to pass in spite of so many people, parties coming together and supporting that bill. I would like to say that if we do not have equal representation, I think none of the bills which are being passed can be recognized. Without us being heard, how can bills be passed which is going to affect our lives? The Triple Talaq bill, which was passed in Parliament. There were so many debates about it. But I think it is a woman who has to decide what has to happen, because our voices have to be heard. When she is deserted, when there is triple talaq, it is the woman who understands what is more important to her, whether sending the person to jail or making sure that she is provided for. This choice, this debate did not happen. Many bills which are being passed do not give space for these things to be brought into notice. The farm bills. Today, do we talk about women farmers? There are farmers across the country, women farm workers. Do we even take them into consideration? Do we even discuss them? Do we even think about them when we pass the budget or the bills about agriculture? No. Women's voices are not heard. Our constitution talks about right, Our constitution talks about protecting us. It says there will not be discrimination against women. It says that we will not be forced, and we will have equal pay. And nothing should be said derogatory about and any practice which is against, affecting the dignity of women will not be allowed. But is this what we are seeing today happen in this country? Indecent representation of women. Brindaji, when she spoke about what happened to one of my parliamentary colleagues, Supriya Suleji. It is just not her. When we talk about women in politics, when we talk about women in public life, today social media has become a faceless space where you can say anything about women journalists, women writers, women politicians, women speakers, any women who is in public life. And do we have any laws to protect these women? Nothing. She wanted me to bring a resolution or bring a bill. I promise her, I promise all of you that definitely we will bring a bill against shaming women, against passing derogatory comments in social media, in public platforms about women politicians, about women in public life. It has to be stopped. But one thing people should understand, it will only strengthen us. It is not going to make us shy away and run back to our homes and back to cooking, if that is what you dream about. No. We will also teach you to cook. That is part of the agenda also. But it cannot and it should not shame women. If you talk about character assassination, men think that it is a weapon they can use against women and they can send them back to their homes. So laws have to be thought about. There are many laws. We have to create awareness about it. When we brought laws about property rights, which women did not have, regarding their ancestral, I think in Kerala was one of the first states like Tamil Nadu to pass the bill. But is there awareness about it? Have we taken it to these women? How many of them are even aware that they have a right to their property, the property of their parents? So just passing bills, changing, bringing amendments is not enough. I think the awareness should start from schools, should start from homes. Only then we can see the change happening. And I'd like to finish with the lines of Dr. Ambedkar. Be educated, be organized, and be agitated. Because education makes us understand where we are and where we have to go. And coming together gives us a strength that we are not alone. And we have to agitate, we have to break away from that silence which has been imposed on us. And like Bharati said, if we do that, அச்சமில்லை அச்சமில்லை அச்சம் என்பதில்லையே உச்சி மீது வானிடிந்து வீழுகின்ற போதிலும் அச்சமில்லை அச்சமில்லை அச்சம் என்பதில்லையே என்று வென்று காட்டுவோம். And all the best to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for that very wonderful words. I think those words will resonate in our minds and in this hall for the past many years to come. Thank you so much once again. Our next guest is Srimati S. Chandra Priyanka ji, who is the Honorable Minister of Transport of Puducherry. With a huge round of applause, let us welcome Srimati S. Chandra Priyanka ji to the dais.
Good evening to all. அனைவருக்கும் வணக்கம். First of all, I would like to thank Honorable Speaker of Kerala, who is the hero of the stage. I know that we are handling very hard situation and hard time, because it is very hard to attend a meeting after lunch. And I can feel the feelings of you all. But what to do? I have prepared something and let's go. I won't take too much of time, so don't worry, be happy. I'm very proud to constitute my respectful greetings to the Honorable President of India, who inaugurated this memorable event. I express my heartiest greetings to all the Honorable Union Minister, Honorable Member of Parliament, Honorable Ministers of various states and UTs, Honorable Members of Legislative Assemblies of various states and UTs, and other respectable dignitaries present here. First, I thank my Honorable Chief Minister, Sri N. Rangaswamy, to give the opportunity for standing before this forum of women legends. Next, I would like to thank the Honorable Chief Minister of Kerala for their hospitality and arrangement of this historical conference. I am here to talk about the topic of gender inequality. The Constitution of India has granted men and women equal rights, but gender break still remains. The symptoms may vary depending where we live, but gender inequality is truly a national concern. Despite significant improvement in women's health, educational, and economic contribution, the political leadership over the past decade, the gender gap is equality exists, are worried. Most of the women are unaware of their fundamental rights and capabilities. They lack of basic understanding of how the socio-economic and political forces affect them. They accept all the biased practices that persist in families for generations in the name of traditional and societal norms. Primarily due to their ignorance and lack of awareness, ensuring equal educational opportunities to girls will help them to get knowledge and to attain socio-economic independence, and help them to be rightly equipped to contribute towards their upliftment and that of the society they are part of. As times change, we can see the social role of men and the role of women are being cherished, and it is very difficult to question it. The paradox makes us think that men do not seem be inclined to do all the work that women do, except that what is divided into men's job is done by women. It is not enough to speak on the principle level that there should be no discrimination between men and women. To implement, not only the government, but also the private sector must come forward to give women the same opportunity as men. It is fair that women be given equal opportunities and empowerment through the economy. Thus, the economy will also grow. Governments have to ensure non-discrimination in the implementation of policy programs for health and educational employment, which are more prevalent among women. We need to increase the opportunity for women to participate in active politics. It may be hard to see that when women become more involved in politics and come to power, gender differences became indirect rather than direct. At the same time, as the contribution of women in political and public life increases, those thoughts will disappearing on its own within the minds of person who shows this indirect gender differences. I conclude this with the hope and assurance that the women in power are core source in the process of eradication of gender equality. And guys and beautiful ladies, wishing you all success in your life, and thank you for this wonderful opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your very comprehensive speak. May I now request Lata Devi madam to give the concluding remarks, and we'll move on to Rama madam for the vote of thanks.
generally the participants had appreciated the Speaker of Kerala Legislative Assembly and the Government of Kerala for conducting such a memorable event. And almost all of the renowned speakers are of the opinion that it is high time for the passage of 33% reservation bill in the Parliament of India. And they are all of the opinion that justice and equality is to be granted to women in their real life, and life and blood is to be given to the constitutional safeguards empowering women and for ensuring and the legal rights of women to be realized. And Shrimati Ridu Khanduri, in her opening speech, detailed the safeguards of Indian Constitution by giving emphasis to the rights of women, and in that she highlighted the initiatives taken by the government of Gujarat in uplifting and empowering women of that state. And Srimati Nima, the speaker, Srimati Nima, she emphasized the need for women upliftment. Both Nima and Srimati Khanduri, they cited examples from the state's experience and raised their voice for uplifting and empowering women. Rinda Karat, who really an inspiring speech, that all of us are impressed by the storming presentation of Srimati Rinda Karat, and through her presentation she emphasized the need for the passing of a resolution in this conference for the passage of women's reservation bill in the Parliament urgently, and also by citing examples from the preamble and from Part 3 Fundamental Rights and Directive Principles of State Policy. She highlighted the need for the protection of secularism and democracy in India. And Srimati Kanimazhi, she also gave a verbal treat to us by quoting renowned scholars and leaders of the world. And it is a great relief to the women of India that as a member of the Parliament, she expressed her willingness in introducing a legislation in the Parliament against character assassination of women through the social media. Srimati Chandra Priyanka and Srimati Ridu Khanduri and the other respected speakers on the dais all inspired us through their verbal treat, and I thank you all speakers on the dais and the dignitaries of the dais for cooperating with us for conducting this seminar in a very grand, successful way. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. May I now invite a very empowered woman of the current Legislative Assembly, Srimati K.K. Rama Madam, for the vote of thanks.
Honorable Speaker, our most valued invited guests, respected fellow members of the Kerala Legislative Assembly, our most distinguished delegates from in and outside of Kerala, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to take this opportunity to propose a vote of thanks to all the dignitaries who have made it convenient to attend the most prestigious session of the Nation Women's Legislatures Conference 2022, organized by the Kerala Legislative Assembly, upholding the idea of gender equality and empowerment of women. On behalf of Kerala, the Legislative Assembly team, I extended a very hearty vote of thanks to all speakers for sharing with us your ideas and opinions on the most inevitable topic of time, Constitution and women's rights. In the present scenario of the increasing cases of gender injustice towards women, let us hope that the information and the observation shared will contribute a lot to growth of awareness about gender equality and development of self-esteem among women. I must mention our deep sense of appreciation, Dr. Nimabe Acharya, Honorable Speaker, Gujarat Legislative Assembly, for sharing her views on constitutional solutions and means of empowering the woman in the present India. Thank you, Madam. I would like to acknowledge our gratitude to Srimati Rindu Kanduri, Honorable Speaker, Uttarakhand, Vidhan Sabha, for sharing her vision on strength of her constitutional of her safeguarding women's rights. Thank you, Madam. I also wish to express our gratitude to Srimati Brinda Karat, former MP Rajya Sabha and final leader, for the encouragement and motivation she passed on to the audience with this period of time. Thank you so much, Madam. Further, we are gratitude to Srimati Kanimozhi Karunanidhi, Member of Lok Sabha, a journalist and also a poet profession, for expressing her deep concern about a pitiable position of the woman in India and pointing out the constitutional remedies for overcoming the hardness on the way to empowerment of women. And inspiring words and excellent words. Thank you, Madam. I may like to express our sincere thanks to Srimati Chandriya Priyanka, Minister of Transport, Puducherry, for giving us an excellent coverage about the women's rights assured by our Constitution. Thank you, Madam. I may like to express our sincere thanks to the moderator of the session, Srimati R. Lada Devi, ex-MLA, Kerala Legislative Assembly, for being here as the moderator of this session. And I also extend our thanks to Srimati U. Pratibha, Member, Kerala Legislative Assembly, who has become our prestigious guest in this event. Thank you. And finally, I would like to each and every member of the very motivated and dedicated team worked for the making event of big success, including our Honorable Speaker. Once again, thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. This session has come to its conclusion.